This is View from the Top. I'm Modele Sharafa Yusuf, and I thank you for joining us. The National Broadcasting Commission was set up to regulate and control the broadcasting industry in Nigeria. The Commission's responsibilities include advising the federal government on the implementation of the National Mass Communication Policy, as well as licensing cable and all terrestrial radio and television services. The Commission is also responsible for undertaking research and development in the broadcast industry, upholding the principles of equity and fairness in broadcasting, and establishing the dissemination of a national broadcasting code, while also setting standards with regards to the content and quality of materials broadcast. With just a handful of stations in 1992, when NBC was set up, the industry has grown to over 400 broadcast stations. The NBC board is currently chaired by Professor Herbert Orji, who kindly joins me today on View from the Top. Thank you very much, Professor Orji, for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Before we launch into our conversation, here is a brief profile first. Professor Herbert Orji graduated with a first-class degree from Howard University. He got an MBA with distinction in Finance and Operations Research from Michigan University, a PhD from Union, and a PMD from Harvard. He was a lecturer at Howard, LBS, Union, Clark Atlanta Universities, National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies, and CULA. Professor Orji also worked as Senior Systems Programmer with Riggs National Bank, now PNC Bank. He was Vice President of American Express Bank, New York, Pioneer Representative and GM of United Bank for Africa, UK, CEO of Progress Bank of Nigeria, Senior Advisor to IFC Emerging Markets Discount Houses, and CEO of Suma Guarantee and Trust Company, PLC. He currently serves as Chairman of the National Broadcasting Commission, Council Member of the Nigerian Stock Exchange, and Chairman of its Audit and Risk Management Committee. He is also Chief Advisor to the Executive Governor of Abia State. Professor Orji was former Vice Chairman of the Industrial Training Fund and past Chairman of the Nigerian Economic Summits Committee on Federal Government's Budgeting Strategy and Process. Nigeria had previously set two targets for the transition from analog to digital broadcasting. It was first June 2012 and later January 2015. June 17, 2015 is the International Telecommunications Union's deadline. How ready is Nigeria for digital broadcasting, especially since the ITU has ruled out any further deadline extension?
Yes, there will be no extension. However, the NBC has successfully created a template through field demonstration that was carried out in Jos Plateau State. The success of that experiment enabled us to confirm the template that we will use for the rest of the country. In other words, we are making progress towards using the same or similar template to reach the major markets in Lagos, Abuja, Kano, Port Harcourt, Enugu, Ibadan, of course, Jos itself, and Kaduna, Benin. The whole idea is, since there are ongoing projects in the country that are competing for funds, the 69 billion naira we asked the government for to help us fast track and implement the digitization program may not all be available at the same time. So we take the major markets by stages.
So we're still at the template level?
No, we have succeeded in creating the template. Now we're using the template to reach the major markets. We're working on the major markets now. But I'd like to point out that we'll be a lot more successful if the 69 billion we've asked the federal government to give us, or parts thereof, are made available fairly rapidly, so that we don't do a standstill in the process of implementation.
Now, what are the consequences of Nigeria not meeting the deadline? Are we going to run a simulcast system where digital and analog systems operate simultaneously, or what?
We have looked at all possibilities and all options. And what we've decided to do is to create this system of set-top boxes whereby this set-top box that each household with a standard television state will be able to purchase at a federal government subsidized rate will now be attached to the existing TV boxes. And as the signals come in, the set-top box will convert the signals from analog to digital. And we are going to make sure that we have about 100 million over time, not at the same time, 100 million units of set-top boxes that will be sold at subsidized rates to the household.
Now, what I find is that many consumers are yet to really understand what digital migration is all about. What are you going to do to educate the consumers whose analog TV and radio sets will become obsolete, and many of whom obviously will probably not be able to afford the digital sets?
The NBC, in conjunction with the Professional Association of TV and Radio Operators, and also the Independent Association of TV and Radio Operators, has launched a sensitization program on a zonal basis: Southeast, Northeast, Southwest, Northwest, North Central, and South-South. So this is an ongoing sensitization program, and we're using adverts in newspapers, on the radio, on television, T-shirts, sports caps, and conferences and seminars to disseminate the information. As we speak, NBC is reaching out to market associations and women associations, youth associations, and churches.
Apart from the hardware, content is going to be a major issue. Do you reckon that the industry is ready for what's to come? Or maybe I should just ask if you think there's enough appreciation of the task at hand.
From the professional's point of view, yes. From the viewer's point of view, particularly grassroots viewers in rural areas, we still have a job to do, and that job is to continue with the sensitization program, because when the quote-unquote ordinary Nigerian eventually understands, and does a buy-in, it becomes imperative that they will see the digitization program as a way of increasing the efficiency and effectiveness of the programs that they watch on TV. So it's actually a win-win situation. It is not something that they have to tighten their belt for, no. And it is not something that they have to suffer in anywhere for or go to school for. This is, if you've been watching television programs that look like you don't see them very well, at times they are muggy, at times they are slow to change, things will be faster, sharper, more colorful, and you will have more of a multi-dimensional type of content with regards to choice, the variety and availability will increase exponentially. The question is, will the viewers really be, will they have all the time to now enjoy what is going to be available to them?
With the expected multiplicity of channels, how can you ensure standards are going to be maintained, and how can we ensure that the 70% local content is enforced, that the rule is enforced?
The 70% local content rule will now push creativity and innovation in our indigenous producers. This is the good thing. You will have a lot of capacity gap, and this capacity gap must be filled by our people. So it is a question of, do they have the capacity to do it? Do they have the skill set, the financials available, and what of innovation and creativity?
Please tell us about the 200 billion naira broadcasting fund. Who would benefit and how?
Very good. Now, the capacity stretch and the need to fill the 70% local content void will have many answers. And one of the key answers will come from the proposed 200 billion naira National Broadcasting Fund. We figured, when I introduced the concept of a 200 billion naira National Broadcasting Fund, the whole idea is to create a fund that would further energize and drive the rest of the industry so that they can become competitive, instead of just having 5 out of maybe 50 networks doing well, or maybe 100 networks doing well. And you know, where there's competition, it engenders a lot of improvement. So the Board of Commissioners of NBC, which includes the DG, bought the idea, and we brought in some very smart young men under the Nomasis group. I worked with them to create a concept paper, which was taken back to the board. And it spelled out in some detail how the fund will be mobilized. The board approved it, and we decided to use the federal government process of bidding, procurement, to get the best firm, a world-class firm, to do the feasibility study. So management, under the guardianship of the Board of Commissioners, advertised the request for proposal in 3 major newspapers. And we received, because of the stringent conditions, we received about 18 responses, both technical and financial proposals. The feasibility study covers a study of the industry, what is there presently, the amount of money required to fill in the gap and sustain the industry and make it competitive, world class. There has to be a portion for grants, which is